And it is 12:01, so let us, I got Mike's big hammer again. I'm really pretty proud of it. Bring in the meeting. All right.
You can see yourself again.
I can see myself again.
Oh, Joe.
I can see myself double.
If
Joe look like
everyone
a
will
king
mute themselves so that Joe can talk.
All right, I'll mute myself too then. All right, well, thank you so much for such an honor to be able to share the invocation this afternoon. And I'd like to share an invocation from St. Francis of Assisi. It's a prayer of peace. If you're so inclined, please bow your heads as we pray this invocation. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned, and in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. You're on mute, Andy. You're on mute.
Yep, there we go. Got too many buttons. Dan Sundquist, would you lead our Pledge of Allegiance, please?
And Sundquist.
I would be happy to. Please stand and enjoy the flag, and let us begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United
States of
America.
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dan. So I'm going to ask you all to indulge me for a moment. We've got, for our patriotic song, on this day in history, 51 years ago, we got a very unique rendition of this song. And I thought it was very appropriate that we play it today, and I apologize in advance. Yeah, Christine.
I didn't see anyone kneeling.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yes, Fred, it did actually
I
close the
love
festival.
Jimi
And
Hendrix.
that was amazing. All right. So welcome to our August 18th meeting. We have at least 2 guests that I'm aware of. Our speakers, who will get fully introduced later, but we have Laura and Tim here. Do we have any other guests in the room that I'm not aware of? I mean, you all feel like guests to me since I haven't seen you since March, but that I assume means we don't have any visiting Rotarians either. But what the heck? We have a new thing, another new thing for you. Not quite as rowdy as that last one.
Howdy, we're glad to have you here. Welcome, we sing a loud and clear. Relax, enjoy the program, and won't you come back to see us again?
Way to go, awesome. Best I've ever heard. Thank you.
Awesome.
No echo, no lag.
And he did it without moving his lips, too.
Right? You never can tell when Ossie's reading because he doesn't move his lips. So
Okay.
our upcoming calendar next week, we have Work Shift Happens talking about how to get your business ready or get your business set up and your school set up and your city set up to manage people moving or working from home better and more efficiently. Following week, we have Neighborhood Health. Rakesh Patel will be talking to us. On the 2nd, Haven House. On the 8th, we have a board meeting. Also on the 8th, we have Tara Remmer Lawson joining us. On the 15th, Natural Wines from Tammy Wong. The 16th will be another Haven House night. And then on the 22nd, we have Kristen Gaspar. Exciting month coming up. Let's see. Nope, nobody's joined. All right, member moments. Oh, I better pull out my sheet on this one. I don't want to get this wrong. We have a very special member moment. On August 20th, 2 days from today, one of our members, actually 2 of our members, are going to be celebrating their 60th anniversary. And so can we all give a massive congratulations to Gloria Teca for putting up with Frank.
Ah,
60
great
years.
Woo.
That's
Now
another.
I understand. He used to be nice looking.
She still is, Ossie.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
That's a great picture.
Excellent.
is.
All right, for our In the Wild, our favorite quilter, Rachel, went out to the safari park. And there were several wonderful pictures, but I wanted to make it easier. And we have a very full program today, so I wanted to shorten out this whole thing up. Our Salvation Army friends also had an anniversary.
Yay.
Chirito went on a road trip to the car wash with Dora.
Oh, that's so funny.
You know the quarantine is getting bad when going to the car wash.
Take a day out. I like.
And here are Jackie and Jay decided they're looking for a car to steal at a drive-in. If you weren't aware, last Friday they had a drive-in movie at the Center for the Arts hosted a drive-in movie.
No, this was
Concert.
Oh, it was the concert you went
Yeah,
to.
this was the cast from the Jersey Boys, two of the cast members, and it was all rock and roll from the '60s. It was very well done. They
You
had
and
a-
Jackie are two of the cast members from.
Yeah, they had Christian Hoff, who's a local boy, and the guy Travis Clore, who played 2,500 times as Frankie Valli on Broadway. It was really good.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Did you find a car to steal?
No, we liked ours.
Oh, I've seen your car. I don't know why. This week's service spotlight, we have our own inimitable and very untiring Rick Bacher to talk about why he loves serving the community.
All right, and thank you, President Andrew. And you just made your first fatal mistake of your presidency so far. You just turned the microphone over to a past president. No.
Whoa.
You can mute you.
Oh, is that $75?
Well, not only that, he gave me not one slot, but two slots. So I have an announcement about San Pasquale Academy too. But he asked me to talk a little bit about why I do service or why I like it. And so I made a couple of notes, and I've got two quick stories to tell you. First thing, though, I need to have a confession to make is that I'm an addict. I'm a junkie. Just like an AA meeting where you admit I'm addicted. So let me explain that. I think some of you know that a long time ago, I used to do a ridiculous number of Christmas lights. And for those who don't know, I used to do a ridiculous number of Christmas lights. And it was literally months worth of work and exhausting, hard work. I'd have bloodied hands and cut up arms and couldn't move by the end of the night. And a lot of people would say, why do you do that? And that's a good question. So on December 1st at 6 o'clock every year, I would turn on the Christmas lights, and they'd be on every night through the month of December. And every night after work, I'd come home and put a Santa hat on and stand out on the street and hand out a candy cane.
Wow.
And, that was a routine. And every time I'd hand somebody a candy cane, didn't matter if they were young or if they were old, I get the biggest smile that you'd ever want to see. They'd be giggling like they just met Santa. Eyes are wide open. They're looking at the Christmas lights, enjoying Christmas carols, and they just met Santa. That's a moment. I just impacted somebody's life, and it was for the better. And that gives you goosebumps. It does me right now. And that's my addiction to that feeling. That's what you do to make somebody's life a little bit better. And then I had the opportunity to join Rotary and discovered that there's a whole room full of addicts amongst all of you. You all have the same philosophy, the same motivation, and I suspect get that same feeling of being Santa to somebody with all of the service projects and different projects that go on, not only in our club, all the clubs in the community, and in Rotary International. And I have to say, we don't do it for medals. We don't do it for participation trophies. We don't do it to get the golden buzzer. Actually, if we got any of those things, that would kind of defeat the purpose of doing what we do. It's very personal. It's that feeling that you get when you just did something without any accolades. I have another brief story to tell you about that same feeling. And this is my lead into San Pasquale Academy. So another brief story. How many people have participated in Rotarians at Work Day, or what they call Ag Day, out at San Pasquale Academy? I see a lot of hands there. For those of you who don't know what that is once a year in April, there's International Rotarians at Work Day. And ours is usually at San Pasquale Academy. Our club, along with several other local clubs, and while I hate to admit it, the University of Michigan comes out there too. But it's a day to prep the fields, weed, fertilize, plant, get things ready for spring and summer. Starts out with coffee and donuts and socializing. Then you go out to the fields and you work for about 3 hours. And it's exhausting. And when you're done, you're hot, you're tired, you're dirty. But everybody, when they feel like they're done, walks down that hill when you're leaving the fields, usually alone or with your significant other. It's a quiet walk, kind of perspective, get to think about what you just did for that morning. And that's a moment as well. That's the Rotary moment. That's the Rotary feeling when you come down that hill and think about, what did I just do this morning? You just helped out some other people, and there's no fanfare. Again, there's no participation trophy. You just did something good. That's my spiel on service. Hope that's helpful. And I would mention, I guess, that during these times of quarantine, those moments are few and far between right now, but the opportunities are still out there to find your moment anytime you'd like. There's things going on in this club every single week. Just ask any board member if you'd like to get involved. All you have to do is say, I can do that. You hear President Andrew make an announcement about something, or Haven House, or any other projects going on. You can give of your time, your talent, your money, any of those things, but find your moment. It's there waiting for you, and you'll be the beneficiary of that. So that's my lead into San Pasquale Academy. I want to talk about Shop Till You Drop now. This is my second announcement. Many of you have heard of Shop Till You Drop in the past. This is where we help support the foster high school students out at San Pasquale Academy again, because they're foster students, they don't have parents or grandparents to help them with their necessities. And one of those times is at the beginning of the school year. So it's the start of the school year again, and we're collecting supplies for the schools. I asked what they needed. Here's a list on your screen now of the things that they requested. Should mention this is a joint project of all of the local clubs. We already have a donation from the Sunrise Club. Hopefully you've received that, Mike. No?
Not yet. Maybe it's in today's mail.
Maybe it's in your today. No? And we have a commitment from the After 5 Club as well. With that, we're going to be able to buy 100 backpacks. So we've got backpacks taken care of already. But here's a list of other supplies that we'll need as well. Or as always, donations are accepted and professional shoppers are standing by. So the question is, how's this going to work this year? Usually we all collect the donations, go out there on one day, spread them all out in the auditorium. Many of you have been there, joined for this event. But this year there won't be the big room full of supplies that the kids can come pick from. We'll just be, oh, there's a good picture of some of the deliveries and great hats from last year. Oh, and Johnny, good picture of you, Johnny. That picture will never go away. So this year instead, we'll just take things out there, drop them off on the curb. They'll take them in, sort it all, and deliver everything to the kids individually because they're quarantined too. So they're all in their own houses and can't come and pick out everything. But how do we get everything from each of you to donate? Well, next Thursday on the 27th, between 2 and 4 o'clock, we're hopefully going to set up a drop-off point at the Center for the Arts. So we'll be out there between 2 and 4 o'clock. If you would like to drop off any donations, you're welcome to at that time. Should also mention that we'll be accepting donations for the Salvation Army as well. Ron Smith and Dollar Bill mentioned that they were looking for diapers, I think, Ron, and baby wipes as well.
That's right, Keith. We talked about that at last week's meeting, and Andrew was kind enough to send out the flyer that we got from Salvation Army, and it was in the email that you got yesterday, I think it was, showing the Centerview items, or all of the articles, and that flyer with details. And so if it's something that you're wanting to do, we'll be happy to collect them. And Keith, is this the right time to talk about the roster?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, we put a couple of projects together to make it a little bit more convenient. Keith's wife, Charito, has done a fabulous job putting that roster together. You're going to see some huge improvements in it, and you're going to be really pleased with what you get. And we want to hand those out to you. And if you come by the donation site to drop off some San Pasquale Academy stuff or anything, diapers for the Salvation Army, we'll be there with your roster. Or if you just want to come by to get your roster, that'll be fine too. We're hoping to get a lot of people come by so we can get those out to you. And it'll be fun to have a little face-to-face visit. For many of you, we haven't been able to get close and say hi, and we're actually looking forward to that. So we're going to try to make a little party out of it.
What was the date and time again, everyone?
It's next Thursday, August 27th, between 2 and 4, hopefully in the parking lot right next to where we used to meet at Center for the Arts. No?
Yeah, unless they tell us otherwise, we'll just plop down and pop up in a couple of chairs in that reserved for Rotary parking spot.
There you go. There you go.
And we are going to get a email with the information?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Get that too.
Yeah, you'll get an email with everything, and then we'll make another announcement next Tuesday and then be there next Thursday. No?
Yeah, and if you bring by stuff for both Salvation Army and San Pasquale Academy, we'll autograph your roster for you.
Well done. And should mention, if you can't make it during that time, we'll be happy to come and pick up any donations and hopefully deliver your roster as well. So we'll sort it out, but that's a beginning point next Thursday.
Actually, let's give them a little more motivation to donate. If you bring something to donate for either San Pasquale or the Salvation Army, we won't autograph your directory. How's that sound?
Very good, Mr. President. Well, the only thing I'd say in closing there, Andrew, and to everyone else, is find your moment in the quarantine time. We need that moment as much as everybody else needs our help. So find your moment. And I might suggest too, you always start the meeting with the member moment, Andrew. That member moment can be your moment too. Think about what happened this week that was your moment walking down the hill at San Pasquale Academy or handing a candy cane to a kid at Christmas. No? Find your moment.
Perfect. And I had actually missed one Rotarian in the wild, literally in the wild. So we're going to circle back briefly to talk to our Rotarians truly in the wild right now, this very minute. Justin, Alex.
Hey, Justin and Alex here on Puget Sound. We were able to secure a small plot of land on Whidbey Island. We built a small estate. I want to give you a little tour. Here's the master bedroom.
You shouldn't use the word master anymore.
Yep, and the kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so
I'm impressed with the swimming pool.
yeah, and it is not 100 degrees up here.
It's 62.
Nice.
Oh, my gosh.
Now I'm jealous. All right. So
Good for you guys. That's cool. That's very, very cool.
and happy birthday, Justin.
Oh, yes, in 10 days.
Oh, I thought this was your birthday party.
All month is the birthday month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
I like that.
All right. Here we go. So our fun song. We have an amazing fun song today. Again, we brought back one of the greatest singers and jazz musicians from the dead. You notice I said jazz this time instead of rock because we already did the rock one. So for our fun song today, let's welcome Satchmo Sulis.
I see trees of green, red roses too, a world growing green thanks to people like you, as you pledge to ensure it's a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, and Tim and Laura won't give up the fight as they pledge to ensure it's a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow so pretty in the sky, as Tim and Laura are always standing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" They want to tell you they love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn so much from the seeds that you sow as you pledge to ensure it's a wonderful world. Yes, they're pledged to ensure it's a wonderful world.
Very well done.
Oh,
Very good.
Nice, Nick.
And I should also note, Irv actually wrote the lyrics to that one, but Nick, on his rebound from the whole rap fiasco, definitely stepped up there. All
Indeed.
right. Mayor Mack, would you like to introduce our speakers for today, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I would. This is a really big honor for me to introduce our program today. These are two people who have dedicated their lives to our environment and our climate, but they've done it in such a unique way that, like me, they believe that we can have a good environment, we can have a clean climate without sacrificing smart growth or economic development. That they are in fact compatible, and they've worked and they have a body of work that demonstrates it. Laura, now just say one other thing about Laura. I count on, as the mayor, I count on Laura more than I think any of you know, to help craft the city's direction and how we're going forward in growth, and how we're going forward in ensuring that we have a great environment for our children. She served as the Associate Director and Campaign Director for Environmental Health Coalition for over 24 years. She was instrumental in that role, securing the decommissioning of the South Bay Power Plant and the creation of the 2,000-acre South San Diego Bay National Wildlife Refuge. She also led the environmental community as an advocate for the 500-acre Chula Vista Bayfront Master Plan, which is really a model for how you can get everyone together and get things done. And if you're not familiar, it's on the bay, and it's worth looking into. I'll just say that. After retirement, she's become more active in Escondido development, climate, and planning issues, and she currently serves as the chair of the Sierra Club North County Group Conservation Committee. She's also been an active member of the Escondido Community Advisory Group for Environmental Impact and Climate Action. And we've had meetings with her and her group, with Sandag and a number of other agencies. She's lived in Escondido for 28 years. Complimenting her today is Tim Swift, who grew up in northern New Mexico and moved to California in 1997 to pursue a degree in biochemistry at UC San Diego. He spent 7 years living, working in South Bay, Los Angeles, after which he relocated back to San Diego to start a family. And for the last 10 years, he's resided in Escondido with his wife, who happens to be a local high school teacher. For 15 years, Tim has worked for Phenomenex, a global technology leader delivering analytical chemistry solutions in support of life environment science, and he's an avid outdoorsman. Tim's lifelong love for the mountains and the ocean has led him to volunteering his time to several local environmental groups committed to safeguarding our natural world and improving the quality of life for our local residents. It's my pleasure to present to the club Laura Hunter and Tim Swift.
Yay. Induce, you're going to.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having us. Thanks, Paul.
Great. Thank you so much. Can I share my screen? Oh, you're going to do it for me, Andy?
If you want to share your screen, I will be happy to let you. You know,
Okay.
when to
Yeah, I added one slide that I think people will find interesting. So
go for it.
all right, let me see if I can pull this off. We'll see. Can you see that?
It's coming. I see that. There it is.
Great. Okay, good. Okay, let me get up there. So first I would like to, let me start the slideshow. I just say I'm so grateful to be here. I want to thank the mayor for that introduction and that song. Oh my gosh, I did not, the last thing I expected was to bring tears to my eyes at a Rotary meeting at noon. So I just, I think that was so wonderful. I also want to thank Dara for having this idea. I would have never asked or thought to do it. So we are really excited to be here. Tim and I are presenting today, but I want you to know we're representing about 20 active members on our subcommittee of the Environmental Advisory Group. We've been working since January, and what you're going to see today are highlights of our recommendations. The full, as the mayor knows, the full presentation takes about an hour and a half, so we don't have that much time. But anyway, I want to kind of go through the highlights today and talk to you about what we've been working on, and then hopefully we'll have time for questions and answers. So when we started with the Community Advisory Group, the City Council established it, and we created a subcommittee that wanted to do two things related to the upcoming Escondido Climate Action Plan, which I'll call the ECAP. And we wanted to be sure that we integrated social equity into the plan, and we wanted to be sure it included the most effective measures. There's measures you can do that are not as effective as others. So we wanted to be sure we had a mind on that also. Why won't it go? So just so some of these words might and concepts may not be that familiar to folks. So I just wanted to mention two: environmental justice and social equity. Environmental justice is a term that recognizes that certain communities, generally lower income and communities of color, have historically borne the brunt of pollution exposure, have been left out of important decision-making power structures and processes, and ultimately they will be impacted worst and first by climate change. We're taking action on that by making sure this cap has effective, equitable action. And what we understand this to mean is these impacted communities, underserved communities, and most vulnerable residents, through policies and programs, help reduce the disparities. Here's, if some of you are more visual learners, here's an example of that. The difference between equality and equity. Equality, everybody gets the same box, but everybody doesn't need the same box to be able to have the same benefits. So that is the difference between equality and equity. The way we're proposing as a group to achieve this is to first designate what we call priority investment neighborhoods. And these are the areas where the location, pollution, and climate risks, combined with inherent population characteristics and historical underinvestment, put those residents in the highest risk. We want to improve access and participation, and we want to designate these communities for funding and programs. How we went about it is we use something called CalEnviroscreen, and this is a statewide database that is used to track the cumulative burdens of communities coupled with their particular characteristics, such as high asthma rates, such as high cardiovascular incidents, such as low birth rates. And then a score is given to these census tracts just to get you grounded. Here's the 15, here's Center City Parkway. I don't know if you can see my cursor. The numbers are the ending of the census tract that it tracks, and the redder, the higher cumulative burden risks. the way they got to those is for each census tract, we're not going to go through this obviously, but you can see the kinds of things they looked at statewide. And they've done this assessment for the entire state by census tract. They looked at ozone, PM 2.5 exposure, diesel, toxic releases, clean, drinking water issues, hazardous waste location. And they also looked at health indicators, asthma, low birth rates, and poverty levels, linguistic isolation, things like that. So what we did with our recommendations is we drew a line around all of those census tracts that had the highest cumulative burdens in the city. And we're calling these our priority investment neighborhoods, meaning we want to be sure that we improve conditions and address climate risks in these communities. This little dotted line is Escondido Creek, and you see it runs right through the middle of these areas. So you might want to ask, like, well, what does that mean, designating priority? What would we do for the priority investment neighborhoods? So here's some of the things that we could see being done. We love this idea that staff came up with called an energy equity plan, and we'd like to really work on what that actually means. We're focusing tree canopy to 35% because a lot of these areas are also known what is known as a heat island, and Tim will talk to you more about that in a minute. We want to expand our home energy retrofit program or weatherization. This is low-hanging fruit for getting carbon reductions, saves money, improves health, and has a lot of benefits if we were to do that. We want to prioritize more green space and a more beautiful Escondido Creek bike path that's more usable to urban communities. Improvement of focusing our walkways and public transportation routes, identify home cooling and cooling centers, create a climate action fund, and local green job creation. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but those are some of the things that, and specialized education and outreach to these neighborhoods as well. I just wanted to touch base on what some of the retrofit program elements could be when we do what's called a weatherization or an energy retrofit. It's light replacements, it's window replacements, it's insulation. That's like the most important thing. We could do energy efficiency appliance, energy efficient heat pump, panels, cool plantings, transit passes, and even a garden bed. The more people can eat close to home, the more climate emissions we reduce. So now I'm going to pass off to Tim, and he's going to talk to you about his favorite topic, trees.
All right, thanks, Laura, and thanks everybody for having us. And Mayor Mack, I appreciate the introduction. And I've just been excited to be a part of this process for, gosh, even since before January. We were starting to talk about these ideas and what can we start kind of spearheading as a group. And it's so far been pretty well received by all the various stakeholders. And now it's just trying to figure out how to implement and fund. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So kind of in the spirit of Andy's throwing it back, a few decades, I think of Bob Ross when I think about Happy Little Trees. If you ever remember those PBS programming shows, and he's painting his little, nature scenes with happy little clouds and trees. So I'm getting to talk about the fun stuff that I think everybody can get behind. So let's talk about some metrics, though, in terms of benefits of trees. In terms of climate change mitigation, which is really most importantly what we're after, they work two ways. Obviously, we all know trees and plants pull out CO2 from the air and they exchange for oxygen. In the case of a single tree, now depending on size and species and maturity, it's anywhere on the order of 40 to 80 pounds of carbon per year. So you start running some numbers. Currently, Escondido has tagged roughly about 50,000 trees in their asset management program. That's, a couple thousand tons of carbon annually. So it's not insignificant, and we want to build on that. The second way that trees are a major benefit to reducing climate change is basically by reducing the amount of emissions that are associated through buildings, particularly through energy use associated with heating and cooling. We're all in the middle of this heat wave right now. We're getting warnings about power being shut off because we're all pulling too much from the grid. Trees are a way, among other things, to minimize that, along with, of course, weatherization. And this is notable because about a third of all carbon emissions in our country are generated through buildings, basically through, coal and gas-powered electricity production, and all the other things that go with that. So we can minimize that through just shade. That's a huge benefit. Additionally, we get some flood events occasionally in Escondido. Trees can retain that stormwater. Obviously, we all know we need green spaces and trees and plants for wildlife habitat. And we're not just talking on the periphery, but within an urban setting, it's very important to have stopovers for birds and different species. In addition to taking in CO2, trees effectively clean our air. So we think about some of those, particularly the priority investment neighborhoods that are near some of those transit beltways where there's a higher pollution burden. Trees are going to be one, essentially a tool in the box to kind of clean the air and remove some of those pollutants. I don't have the metric here, but I think I made some calculations of the 52,000 trees. It's something like a ton or two of pollution a year that those trees would mitigate. And then, of course, like I said, or as Bob Ross said, trees make people happy. They improve well-being. They've been linked to crime reduction. And then specifically, and Mayor Mack really mentioned this, this is all, it's not a mutually exclusive proposition to, better our environment and mitigate climate change, but also have the economics that come with it. So if we want to talk about the economics of trees, we can think about, first of all, just the reduction in energy use. If we situate these around, houses and buildings, we can, run our ACs a little bit less. Properties appraise at significantly higher values when they have, nice mature trees. Research on that was, something on the order of 5 to 15% higher appraised values. The city likes that because they can, assess them at higher rates, collect more property tax. You think about downtown Escondido. I mean, who wants to walk down there when it's 115 degrees? We can get trees and green space and some revitalization down there. It attracts folks. They want to spend money down there. They don't want to go into retail shops. More sales tax income for the city, and overall, it's just a benefit for so many reasons. So we kind of add all these up. We're talking something like $3 or more of ROI for every tree planted and maintained. So I really wanted to kind of hammer home the benefits that might not be as obvious. So we can go to the next slide now, Laura. So these are kind of the ideas. This is just a subset. It's a much longer list, but we don't want to get too down into the weeds, so to speak. But really our plan is to create a city's forestry team that's essentially built around the existing infrastructure. We have a Parks and Recreation staff that have done a lot of work and even started creating and mapping the current tree inventory. But we want to basically put together a plan to increase coverage in these areas of deficiency, particularly in these priority investment neighborhoods. If you scroll down to that bottom bullet point, again, Laura mentioned we're trying to target 30 to 35% coverage in these areas because these are, where the heat islands are. This is where it's an equity issue. They don't have ACs, or not everybody, has access to that. And in some instances, it's also a bigger challenge to get, in rental situations, landlords to take care of some of these problems. So we want to have an aggressive plan there where over the next 15 years, we can increase some coverage considerably. But first, if we, kind of go back up to the top bullet point, we got to figure out our baseline. So it's going to take some money and some funding to assess our current canopy coverage. We want to make sure that we're planting with, drought tolerant, native species. We have a lot of Mexican palms, around the city, which look nice, in the skyline at sunset, but they don't really do a whole lot to mitigate, or pull in carbon or provide shade. So we want to make sure that we're very thoughtful about that. So we can go to the next slide, Laura. So we have a number of funding opportunities started identifying, and I'm not going to go through the whole list, but this really is the biggie here. So CAL FIRE under Prop 68 framework has put out basically urban forestry grants that are available for any city to apply for. On the right, if you can see it, I know it's a little bit small, I'll just kind of detail these. There's on the top, the city of Temecula, our neighbor up north, they got about $350,000 a couple years back to do exactly what we're looking to do. They created an urban forestry plan. They needed to make that initial assessment for canopy. They needed to pay for an arborist to oversee projects. They needed money and funding for the initial planting of several hundred trees. So they applied for the grant and they got it, and they were able to carry that work out. And you go down the list, National City, I think got $650,000 a few years back for similar work. Something like $17 million was doled out a couple years ago for all urban forestry programs. So our goal as a group is to make sure that this is on the city staff's radar, to make sure we attend one of these workshops. I think 2020, we had hopes of doing that, but all plans went out the window, of course. But for next year, so this is definitely a high-level idea or opportunity to fund. Okay, Laura, next slide. I think we're going to get into a different mode here. So another pillar that we're focusing on as a group, transportation. And again, this is just a very small subset of some of the ideas we're putting forth. Where it makes sense, we want to replace the city fleet with electrics as soon as possible. And that ASAP can really be meant or interpreted as, there's, a depreciation schedules associated with the current fleet. So when vehicles come to the end of their life, we want to make sure that it's getting replaced with an electric option or a plug-in. And there's options out there for all different types of vehicles, police cars, sanitation vehicles, buses, et cetera. So we want to make sure we're electrifying that fleet. We want to be a partner to North County Transit District. We want to increase ridership. We understand it's hard to, use public transportation because sometimes it doesn't get you to where you need to be, or sometimes it's not accessible to people or cost. So we want to increase ridership by getting programs in place that can maybe give free youth or reduce fares to qualifying folks. This would be also part of a broader plan that, depending on what happens with Sandag in the coming years with, creating Escondido as a big hub for, really the county, this will be kind of tethered into that grand plan. We want to make sure we have funding for safe and green transit in priority neighborhoods. So this can be, walking to school or getting around on a bike. I think back to growing up in New Mexico. I mean, we rode bikes everywhere. And my kid didn't even learn how to ride a bike here until, age 10, because we got hills and no lanes and everything. So where it makes sense, if there's some ways to allow people to get around town on bikes and pedestrian and other green ways, that would also, of course, eliminate some of the pollution burden, some of these higher burdened areas. We want to increase the citywide electric vehicle solar powered charging infrastructure. So where we can, certain parking lots where it makes sense, have those as available to, city residents to utilize. We want to have measures that can promote that use. We want to, if we can, we're proposing electrification of some of the long haul vehicles. And again, just more infrastructure for zero emission vehicle charging and that sort of thing. So I'll finish off my section here with renewable energy. And I got to say up front, where our esteemed counterpart, Matt Vasilakis, he usually does this section because he's very up to speed with community choice energy, where we're at in the process. I'll share a couple slides after, but that top line really is the biggie in terms of how Escondido and really how San Diego is going to get to net zero energy use. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But the other kind of sub initiatives that are certainly important, and maybe the second one is a little easier to do, any new homes built, we can have ordinances in place that allow them to, or that require them to be net zero and, to the fullest extent possible, make sure that they're electric. We can have solar panels on the roofs, heaters or water heaters are electric, heat pumps, things that use less energy and are more efficient, and it's all solar powered. As Laura mentioned, kind of this dovetails with weatherization, making homes more energy efficient. We also want to have programs to retrofit for essentially renewable energy. It costs money to put solar panels on roofs. You may not get the ROI right away. So we understand that not everybody can do this. There's a lot of folks that rent. Where are the incentives for landlords to want to do this if they're not paying the utility bills? So this is something we're thinking about. We want to try to develop programs around. And then I'll read a few more here. Obviously, we want to, again, focus on priority investment neighborhoods for solar energy. There's the SOMA, for focused neighborhoods, is solar on multifamily affordable housing. We want to basically have some photovoltaic goals set aside for both city and non-city owned production. That's basically, setting iterative metrics for how much solar we want to install. And that'll really drive a lot of, this other, essentially how and when we achieve net zero. But a lot of this will also really tie into a CCE, and that'll get us into this next slide here. So this is Matt. He would give you all the bells and whistles. I'll try not to fully read the slide here, but really the gist of a community choice energy program is we're still utilizing SDG&E. That's, the private aspect. They're still going to deliver our power to us. We're going to still be billed by them. But we're really going to now have a choice into the source of the electricity, where that electricity is made. If it's made by, a coal power plant, or if it's made, backed by natural gas, or if it's renewable wind, solar. And by doing this, by bringing in competition in the environment, it's essentially an option to get cleaner renewables at an actually a cheaper price than what we're currently paying. I actually attended a talk last week. It was really a great talk by a prolific Stanford scientist who's developed a lot of the models that have basically laid the groundwork for how really the world is going to become energy neutral in the next 15 to 20 years. And he's part of a CCA in the Bay Area, and he gets, you know, $700 back every year for overproducing with his solar panels by 20%. And I, on the other hand, with solar, I think I'm getting paid, you know, pennies on the dollar because I don't get reimbursed at the rates that I use. So community choice would bring in, you know, that aspect among other things. So last slide, Laura, and then well, I think I'll be turning it back to you. So again, the benefits of a community choice energy, it's bringing a competition into the marketplace, better rates for families and businesses, higher rates and choices for renewable energy. So not only saving money, but also the energy is cleaner. And it's going to stimulate some economic development. There's going to be jobs created by, you know, allowing for the creation of these cleaner energy sources. And that's really, again, back to what, you know, Mayor Mack said, this is not a mutually exclusive proposition to invest in, you know, climate-friendly policy and infrastructure that can, you know, create jobs. And there's some really strong economics behind it. And really it's equitable, you know, folks that, you know, don't have the luxury or ability to pay for solar panels or options to, you know, go renewable. This would give them that opportunity. So really the major point here is our group as a whole are really supporting that the city either create or become a part of an existing CCE. So Laura, I think you're up for this last.
Great. Thanks, Tim. And the other thing I want to say about CCE is that ultimately this would become a revenue source for all the things that we want to do. And I think that as what we did, you know, things cost money, and we know that. So we have developed our measures that will be very receptive to and designed for grant proposals and money that's out there that we can get used to implement. One thing I learned, the mayor mentioned the Chula Vista Bayfront Master Plan. And one other thing I learned down there is that when everybody's on the same page, there's nothing we can't do. So grant proposals or anything would, you know, we would get all of them if we were all on the same page and pulling in the same direction. So I want to quickly talk, this is like the really fast version of all of this, but I want to talk about land use, because land has a major impact in a lot of ways on climate change. There are really two ways that we can address the carbon emissions in the atmosphere. One is to stop emitting more, which we call emission reduction. And the other is to leave the plants alone because they suck them in and they absorb them. So that's called sequestration. One of the great habitats types that sequester a lot of carbon are riparian corridors, or read streams. This is a word not everybody knows. But if you would to restore 1 kilometer of a stream bed, you know, fully restore it, that is equivalent a year to 1,400 homes a year of emissions that it would normally go out in the atmosphere. It will take in those emissions, or 3,400 passenger cars a year. So it's a very effective carbon sequesterer. The other habitat type that is very efficient is the chaparral. It's very under-recognized, but the chaparral is a great carbon sequesterer in terms of habitat. In terms of urban creeks, we know that if one of our major requests is that we have a riparian restoration initiative in the ECAP, because if the city has signaled this is what we want to do, we know as advocates for the city and the ECAP, we can go out and get funding for that. And in fact, the city's already getting money for this. The Fish and Wildlife, State Fish and Wildlife has given 500,000. Sandag has given 5 million for a Spruce Street renovation, bike trails, Cottonwood Creek. You see the most radical example of this on the right in South Korea. And yes, this is too expensive for us, but they moved a whole freeway. Now think about the economic and quality of life for anybody living along what was the freeway is now the creek. We could do that at a much smaller scale here. But where will people live? And so I think this is a big challenge that we're facing not only in Escondido, but from everywhere. Are we going to continue to sprawl and fragment the chaparral habitat and increase the fire risks radically, which is exactly what happens? Or are we going to develop urban, beautiful, high quality places to live? If we can develop communities like the top slide, it will result in 20 to 40% less driving, which reduces VMT and emits about 13 metric tons less than suburban units. I'm probably running out of time, so I really go fast, but where we have a number of recommendations to mitigate fire risk, to concentrate investment and development within the urban footprint so that we can improve that and not sprawl out of our boundaries. We want to develop the partners to develop these restoration plans. We want to stop development in fire and stop developing in fire prone areas and help the farmers with the most beneficial type of farming, because carbon farming also has a lot of benefits. I'm almost done. Buildings we've talked about as a huge issue. If you just look at the GHG reduction potential, you can see that buildings are very, if you take electrification and commercial efficiency and energy efficiency, that you get very high reductions for buildings. Weatherization we talked about, but basically the average home will save hundreds of dollars in energy bills. I've lost exactly my notes, like $437 reduction on average. It also creates, doing the energy efficiency and the weatherization creates green jobs, something we can train our residents for, reduces 2 tons per house per year, forever, as long as the house is there. And for every dollar invested, $1.80 goes directly to the household and even more to job creation. Building electrification, I won't go through this, but there are many health, economic, climate, workforce, and safety issues related to getting rid of natural gas in your home and using electric instead. So that's the end of our comments. I'm sorry, we probably went too long, but here's just a thank you from some of our members, and hopefully we have a time for a little bit of questions. Thanks.
Okay, well, actually, you did perfect. You're right on time. What I will ask, yes, would you be able to stick around after I close the meeting to answer the questions?
Sure.
Okay, so that'll be the best way for us to do that, because that way then I'm not staring at the clock and making myself all nervous and worried and upset. So let's see here. It was wonderful. Thank you. And whoops, my screen sharing is paused. Let's see. There we go. Where am I? Yes, there we are. Is that coming up? There it is. So let's see here. Let's scroll down and get locked in and call it a day. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Keith, for your amazing minute. I'm sorry, my brain just went completely gone, and I hate it when that happens. But here we go. Let's go ahead and grab my big hammer. Thank you to our Escondido Community Advisory Group. We will actually be sending you a copy of your song, suitable for framing, and it will be up on recorded. So let's go ahead and look at our shower thought. Taking a bite from a hamburger determines where the front of it is, which is really good information to know. Closing out our meeting. We'll see you next week. All right. So I will leave this open and stop the sharing, and feel free to ask questions of our esteemed guests.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a Mac question or one for Laura or Tim. Is the city already involved in using alternate fuel vehicles?
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I know that generally what I've seen on agendas, and the mayor can speak to this more, but there are, you often buy hybrids, and that's, better than a full gas vehicle, but there are more and more, there are fully electric vehicles that can be used for many, if not most, of the vehicles that the city has in its fleet. So we're trying to accelerate the rate of conversion to electric vehicles. There are even police forces that use a Tesla as a police car, goes faster than anything. You have to watch the charge, of course, but they're actually building them specifically for police use.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Christine, can I just add one thing? What Tim and Laura presented today is literally just the tip of the iceberg of all the initiatives that are going on at the city staff to move forward on a more with a long range vision to not only do economic growth in the city, but also to make sure we preserve the city environmentally for generations to come.
No, the reason I ask is I used to do the fleet when I was in public works for another city. And probably 20 years ago, we started looking at electric vehicles for code enforcement, parking enforcement. That was what was kind of available then. And then built up the infrastructure at the city yard for natural gas and electric and allowed the public to come in. So it became a money-making venture. That we provided the infrastructure and then you pay us for, you know, what you're fueling. And I just wondered where our city was in that process.
Oh, Christine, can you please join our community
I was just
advisory
gonna say,
group?
yeah, I got a friend for you. You and Charlie will get along great.
You're on the committee. I also I forgot to say one important thing, and that is we're working on incentives for landlords and renters to do the weatherization. So if anybody on this call is a landlord or has thoughts about how can we incentivize these improvements for the rental stock, please get in touch with me or Tim. We'd love to talk to you. But Christine, you're drafted. I'm sorry. You have to be on our committee.
Hey, Mac, it's Fred. Has the city of Escondido partnered with anyone yet on CCA?
Well, technically no, but it's not. We're working with San Marcos. They're doing studies on it. There's a couple options of, there's some city groups that are already formed, and we're going through the analysis right now. I think it's safe to say that we will join somebody at some point, but there's a couple options as to which path to go down. And that's all in work right now.
Yeah, there's a feasibility.
It has been work.
Yeah, the feasibility study hasn't been released yet, but
yeah,
we're confident, having looked at many others in the county, it will say Escondido, it's very feasible and you have a choice of going it alone or joining another one. That's
but those that have been formed already, the differential between SDG&E and the CCA has been pretty small, hasn't it?
You mean in terms of price?
Yes.
Yes, probably it hasn't, you know, it takes a while to get it going, but the big difference is the profits go to the entity, not to SDG&E anymore. So even if it was the same cost to you, to consumer, that part of it that is profits to SDG&E for distribution go to the city, for example, and that would go into their general fund. We're going to advocate for that to go into more climate action and more of those things, but that's the biggest benefit of doing CCE.
Thank you, Laura.
One of them. Any other questions? Well,
thanks, you guys. It was a really interesting program.
Well, thank you for including us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you again so much. It was amazing. It was a great program, Tim, Laura. Welcome to come back and join us anytime you'd like.
Sure.
Perfect. We'll take care.
Every Tuesday at noon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.